Good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to my channel. This is the second video I'm doing with you guys. Just sort of hanging out with you in the greenhouse today. I was working with my orchids in the front of the greenhouse earlier today and thought I brought a whole bunch of different stuff out for potentially different topics today. But one thing I noticed, this is my Dendrobium Thyrsiflourum. Now it used to be twice this size and it was in a big wooden hanging basket, and I actually got it from a friend who's since passed on. So I'm doing my best to sort of keep it and revive it because it wasn't in the best shape to start with. But anyways, so it was in a big wooden basket and I left it there for a few years, and it did flower for me a couple years in a row. Has beautiful orange and white pendant sort of flowers on it. But then I noticed last winter it was starting to look pretty sad. So these things, the tag says, because I have the tag right here, it says I repotted it in 03-16, January, February, March. I did a lot of repotting in March because that's when I do a lot of repotting. The vanilla vine, which is still right beside us from the last video, was also repotted in March. So I looked at these guys at the same time. But anyways, I repotted this guy, and when I took it out of the old pot, it had no roots whatsoever. The old media was soured. It was my own fault because when I received the plant, I didn't know how old the media was, and I didn't just instantly repot it. I thought, I'm going to keep it growing and see what I can do with it. And I guess that was a mistake because I could have got a jump on making the plant healthier earlier if I had repotted it earlier. But you never can tell, right? So anyways, I just wanted to show you this guy. And then the division, it came into two, so I divided it and I went two separate roots with this plant. I've been using a lot more moss in the greenhouse, sphagnum moss, because I'm finding the bark is just really high maintenance. But I thought since it was in bark and flowered in bark and been growing in bark for years, I would put this back in bark. So this got a nice bark mixture, just like it came out of. This is a fir bark. It looks like a medium grade and is basically straight bark in a slatted basket, just like it came out of, or a slatted pot in this case instead of a basket, just like it came out of. And I water it when I water all my other orchids. Most of my orchids get watered very well about once a week, twice a week in hot weather, for every 10 days in cooler weather. But anyways, it's no set exact thing. I do kind of eyeball it a little bit. But anyways, so this guy here got watered just like the rest of my plants, and it hasn't done overly well. The bulbs are really shriveled because there is no roots, right? I said there's no roots on this plant when I just basically put it in there. And I have been supporting it with a bamboo cane and some zap straps, zip ties. Okay, so we can see what's happened so far. With no roots, the bulbs are really starting to shrivel. They're getting soft to the touch. It's desperately in need of some new roots to start rehydrating itself. As for new growth, since March it is starting. If we can look in there, there's one little spot right there. This one looks like it's pretty new and it's not overly shriveled. There's a few roots down there that have started as well. Another new one. So we have 3 brand new growths and one that was potentially there before but potentially not. I can't really tell. But anyways, and you can see like a few white roots starting down there in amongst the dead roots. I didn't cut the dead roots fully off. I left them a little bit, but they were long dead roots before. And I can see a couple other new growths over here now that I'm looking really close, and a little tiny root about this big. So it's starting to do something, but it's looking like it needs a good watering. And for my schedule, I'm just putting this guy in the sink now because he won't stand up. Doesn't seem like he got watered enough at all. The bark just sort of dries out. And I have increased the humidity on the other side as well. I have my hydrofogger on this side, but I put one of those 9-disc foggers on the worm side as well, on its own separate humidistat. So the humidity over there is much better than it was. Although I keep my greenhouse really humid, I have another one down here. Although I keep my greenhouse really humid, the humidity was coming from back here and going this way. And I think this is my last video with the vanilla orchid. You've seen the clips on the side. I said I roll down a vinyl at night to keep the warm side warm and the cool side cool. Well, the warm side, of course, would have a heater in, especially in the fall, winter, and spring. And heat really dries things out. But the humidistat was on this side with the fogger. So this thing had no extra humidity after dark, after the vinyl was rolled down. So all winter, and even all spring and into summer, the plants on this side were really dry at night. And what I've noticed since I put the fogger on this side as well, and maintain the humidity on that side as well, and I have it set to about 90%. Doesn't mean anything drips, it doesn't mean anything's wet, it's just humidity, it's not mist. So anyways, the roots have gone crazy on most plants. The root growth is phenomenal in that side right now. It's just amazing. I have never had such good orchid root growth. But anyways, this plant, I went a different direction, and instead of the bark, I planted it in moss. It's in a smaller pot, and I planted this one in moss in a smaller pot because it was actually a smaller piece. I thought I'm just going to experiment. I know how that one's growing. I know it is growing ever so slowly, but I want to try something a little different. So what has happened in this one, it has just exploded in growth. The canes need to be staked because the last time I looked at this thing, I had basically staked all the canes. One has turned yellow. It's just dry now. Not wet, not anything. It's just run its course and needs to be removed. But that's just simple with a pair of scissors. But we have got one full cane. It is nice and plump and beautiful. Two more full canes right here that are a little bit smaller because remember this had no roots to start with, so it was growing back off nothing. Two more canes here that are nice and beautiful and kind of hanging. Looks like another full like plump cane here, and maybe a little bulb where it's going to flower. And I can see a whole bunch more little bulges out here now that I'm looking at it nicely. And so this division compared to the other division, which was also repotted at the exact same time, right, because it came out of its hanging basket, has done way better. And you know what the difference is? I planted it in sphagnum moss instead of bark, and it's actually had pretty constant moisture. The roots are doing amazing. I don't even have to worry about this thing falling out. You can see some roots down there. There's big ones. They're going like right into the straight down into the mix now. And there's lots of them. I can see a good dozen or so good roots coming out of this, and those dozen of roots have been able to keep this plant, the whole plant, even the back bulbs, hydrated, where on that one it's just still shrinking down. So honestly, I think what I'm going to do, probably off camera, because we have had enough to talk about today, off camera I'm probably going to repot that guy into a mainly moss mix. Now I know a lot of people are scared of moss, and I was too. I tried to stay clear of it for many years because of the whole root rot thing and everything like that. But really, if it's done right, moss is really efficient, time saving, and it holds moisture so much better. So I never pack the moss very tight. It's nice and loose in there. The roots really firm things up as they go through it, and I do let it dry. Moss is great because if you touch the surface of the moss and it's wet, you know the inside is wet. If you touch the surface of the bark, it can be bone dry, but the inside is still soaking wet, potentially, right? Not necessarily in that case, but just in general. So I'm finding my roots are going crazy because there's all this moss around, the humidity's up in there, they're in more contact with moisture for longer. They're certainly not rotting, they're certainly loving it. I've seen orchids in the wild, I've seen how they grow, and they're certainly growing in moss on the tree trunk as well, not just on the tree, usually. And it rains a lot in the tropics, so they're always wet and then they're always dry. So I make sure that these guys they go fairly dry before I rewater. Again, in the summertime, I probably water this guy once a week, twice a week if it's really hot, and once every 10 days in the wintertime. With the increased humidity in here, I don't even maybe water that much, just enough to keep it moist. And I always keep in mind that just because it is fairly dry on the surface, if you dig your finger in, you can usually find a little bit of moisture like in there. If I dig in to my first little knuckle there, it feels a whole lot more moist than right on the surface. So I know I wouldn't water this guy for quite a while. But yeah, it's phenomenal if you can master, and I have not mastered yet, but if you can master growing in a mainly moss mixture, lower maintenance for you, and this plant at least is much healthier than its counterpart in bark. So anyways, I hope you like this video. Why don't I bring them both out to show you the difference here. I hope you like this video, and if you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And as always, thanks for watching.